Okay, so I'd like to welcome Emma Craig to the podcast today, the head of UX research at Miro. So it's really exciting to get you here. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
No problem. Me too. Me too. So obviously, as I've just said, you're the head of UX research at Miro, a tool that I think many people are aware of, especially in the UX world. Do you want to just give maybe a rundown of your, I don't know, your day-to-day job, what you do in this role of head of UX research?
For sure. I mean, it varies so much on a day to day, but I have a really wonderful team of managers that I'm able to work with, and we
Mhm.
cover all the research areas across Miro. So
Okay.
some of those are at a quite high altitude. We're looking at, what's next for Miro, what's on the cutting
Mhm.
edge of collaboration, product and service innovation. Some really interesting questions there. Right down to more sort of micro research looking at the UX of the canvas, the IA of all of our toolbars, our menus, how settings transfer whether you're an end user to the administrator of an enterprise account.
Mhm.
So it's a
Wow.
really vast scope of research
Yeah.
questions. And we're a team of 12 people. So we're
Okay.
quite nimble. We have to ruthlessly prioritize, we say.
Yeah.
And
I was thinking, like, just as you recounted everything that you have to cover, I was thinking of, like, I don't know, a team of 50 to cover all these different things. But yeah,
Well,
to your
I was
point,
at Shopify and we had a research team of something like 60. So I came from a
goodness
much
me.
more comfortable environment, but they say that
Yeah,
constraints, create creative work. So it's a constraint
that's
that
true.
is interesting to work in.
That's true. You have to think outside the box more often than not, I imagine.
And say no a lot.
Yeah, also that as well. Know when to say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. And like, how is the team kind of structured? Just like out of curiosity. So are you all kind of divided into your specific focuses, or is it more of a everyone gets, I don't know, wears many hats and gets involved in different projects?
So for the most part, everybody will have their own sort of domain of expertise,
Okay,
and it gives them the opportunity to establish trust with stakeholders and really go deep on a
sure.
topic. So that's been serving us quite well. That said, it's hard for research to always have an impact at every stage of a product's life cycle.
Yeah,
At some phases, research just won't be as impactful. So there
sure.
is some flexibility to the model, especially with
Okay.
more senior researchers, where
Yeah,
that autonomy is sort of earned, and we trust that
absolutely.
they'll do well wherever they land. They can kind of hop
Yeah.
from new priorities. Yeah.
Okay. And in terms of like seniority throughout the team, like how does that work? Are there a few juniors, mid-level,
We're
seniors? How's that work?
Yeah, we're actually a very senior team,
Okay.
and it's exciting. Part of the reason I joined Miro was the diversity and expertise on the team. Like we've got
Okay.
some really talented folks,
Yeah.
a couple PhDs, but then also people who came from design backgrounds, business backgrounds like my own.
Cool.
It's yeah, like from all walks of life and from all sort of disciplines. And
Yeah.
it is quite senior.
No, it's got its advantages. Obviously, like you say, you can learn from the expertise of your teammates, and like obviously, like you say, they all come from different backgrounds, which obviously adds to the skill set of the UX team, but also like you can learn new things, which is always nice to do, even if you're a senior. So that's cool. That's cool. And you
Mhm.
touched on before your background, so I'm quite interested in finding out how you ended up at Miro and kind of your journey into UX research.
Yeah, I mean, my career started in business and
Okay.
doing it was sort of like e-commerce advising. I came out of
Okay.
university and, almost landed in like an SEO growth role. It was kind
Okay.
of random. I was a little bit lost. And
We've all
I
been there.
finally really I got my feet under me at Shopify, where I was leading the account management team as we
Okay.
created the Shopify Plus product. So
Hmm.
that was kind of my first taste of product, or I guess service development.
Okay.
My first taste of management and leadership, which I really, really enjoyed.
Cool.
And what was interesting working with enterprise was that you have this pretty consistent and loud feedback channel that you don't
Okay.
always get in other areas of the product.
Mm,
And there are account managers or customer success managers
mm,
who are receiving all of this feedback and then trying to find ways to bring it back to the business in a way that makes sense.
yeah.
And I found that a lot of my time was sort of distilling all of this, these escalations, this feedback, these requests
Mm.
from our highest paying customers, bringing that back into the business. And ideally, in a way that it would trickle down to everybody using Shopify, because the mission of
Mm.
Shopify was to democratize commerce, right? And make it,
Yeah.
make it available to everyone.
Yeah.
Um, so I was doing a lot of that, and then eventually I kind of realized, like, I heard about this UX research team. UX research was
Mm.
not never on my radar. I don't think, it was
Yeah.
it
I
was
don't
something
think
that
it's
I
on
never
most
heard about
people's
before.
radar at the start, at the
No,
start of
I'd
your
never
career.
heard about it. Exactly. And then I found out about it and was like, oh, it's like they're doing kind of what I'm doing, but it sounds a little bit more scientific and
Mm.
rigorous and more my vibe. So
Yeah.
I left I brought all that business acumen with me, which
Yeah.
was very
Useful.
valuable to have. And yeah, something that I still think is extremely valuable for any research to
Yeah.
train up on. But then I joined the research team, kind of like they took me under their wing as an intern. It was a huge
Okay.
career leap of faith
Yeah.
that worked out. Yeah.
That's
And
cool. That's cool.
yeah, I'm at Miro now. I mean, commerce was something that was really disrupted by the pandemic. At the
Yeah.
same time, I was looking for something new while really enjoying that sort of disruption and energy that came out of, like, okay, what's this going to look like
Yeah.
after 2020? So I was looking across industries in like healthcare
Okay.
and ways of working. I was really like
Mm.
Shopify went completely remote. I was very
Okay.
interested in what work and collaboration would look like moving forward and how product and service teams were going to work in the quote unquote new normal, which brought
Okay.
me to Miro.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. And kind of obviously, like you say, you did this kind of internal transition, let's say at Shopify, which in some ways is a good thing because at least you already kind of knew like how Shopify worked internally. Did you face any challenges though? You said it was a bit of a leap of faith at the time. Were there any, I don't know, doubts that you had or you encountered something as you were learning the UX research, how it kind of works? Was there anything that you felt this is difficult or I don't know if I can do this or anything like that?
It's a good question. I
I
think
don't want to put you on the spot.
no, I'm bringing myself back to that young Emma.
You're still
Honestly, the
young, don't
team was
worry.
so thanks. The team was so supportive that it wasn't as scary as I think it could have been, but I had some really
Hmm.
strong mentors. I also had
Sure.
the advantage of it was a small company at the time. I had really
Hmm.
established myself, so I had a lot of strong relationships that already
Yeah.
existed. Like these people that I was bringing feedback to as the head of account management, I was now just working with in a new capacity. And
Yeah.
I think that probably the hardest thing getting started as a UX researcher, whether you're joining a company, joining a new team, even starting a new project, is establishing that trust with stakeholders and
Yeah.
having their buy-in to listen to you and allow you to, you know, have an influence on product direction or have an
Yeah.
influence on how we're measuring success. Um, and I sort of had that. So I think I kind of had it easy, but there were like training up on all the methodology felt like a little bit like a boot camp.
Yeah.
I remember hour 6 of usability interviews in this like tiny little phone booth. And I'm the
Yeah.
type of person that like calling to order a pizza makes me nervous. And suddenly it
Okay.
was like
Yeah.
you have to call,
All these
you have to
people.
have video interviews with people all day. It's like, whoop.
No, I completely get you there. I'm the same. Like, yeah, any sort of it. Like, most of my roles, yeah, I think all my roles, like since I left college and graduated, like I've always been in contact with people, whether it be like customer care, customer experience, was UX research. I've been in education and teaching and stuff. But I'm actually quite an introverted person, and like you say, like just picking up the phone to order pizza is something I would avoid if I can. If I can use an app to do it, then I'll choose that. So yeah, it's kind of weird that we find
Exactly.
ourselves in these sorts of roles. But that's cool. In terms
Exactly
of
the
like,
same.
sorry, go.
I was just gonna say I'm the exact same. I'm a highly social introvert. People never believe that I'm an introvert. But then I mean maybe that's why we rescheduled this interview so many times. We're both like, oh
Probably,
God.
yeah. I mean, it's like the sixth reschedule we've done. We made it though. We made it.
We're here.
Um, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, you touched on methodologies before. Was there one like particular methodology or thing that you like even now, like I don't know, you struggle with or you try to avoid it, like that phone call to for a pizza?
So I took on a developer survey. We'd been doing an annual merchant survey, and we had
Hmm.
this growing ecosystem of third-party developers. And I decided that we were going to do a developer survey like the merchant survey. And I was a
Hmm.
little bit green. I don't think I quite realized how like the art of the survey and how rigorous you need to
Okay.
be in your survey methodology. And I
Hmm.
definitely just sort of went where the wind took me. I'd done like
Yeah.
I had done market research before, so I'd done surveys before, but
Okay.
none for something like this scale. And I remember
Mm,
MailChimp was the tool we were using at the time. And
okay.
when you're about to send an email to thousands of people, there's
Yeah.
like there used to be this like sweaty monkey image about to press a button. And I was sitting there, I was like, oh God, what am I gonna do?
Am I ready for
Um,
this?
yeah. So surveying to this day,
Yeah.
it's really tough. I think it's really valuable for
Yeah.
a researcher to be able to do a mixed method approach and add a survey facet. But if there's the
Absolutely. Yeah.
opportunity, yeah, if there's the opportunity to pair with somebody from data analytics, or
Yeah.
what usually ends up happening, like on the team now at Miro and previously at Shopify as well, there is a researcher who's super comfortable in surveys,
Yeah.
and if they're willing to guide you. But no, I had a lot of fun. Shopify was like the product development and expansion was everywhere. So we were going mobile, we were going international,
Mm.
we were going B2B, and all of this brought opportunities to do some really creative things with methodology. Like when we were
That's
testing
cool.
our mobile app, the mobile app testing software just wasn't there yet. So I
Okay.
flew to San Francisco and had everyone strap
Oh,
GoPros onto their foreheads and use the app. And it was like something I
that's
came up with. I was like,
awesome. Yeah.
so yeah, it was fun.
That's cool. That's cool. So very like experimental, and you're able to, you have the freedom to have that kind of experience in, yeah, trying different methodologies and stuff, which is not something that everybody has, especially like early on in your career, which I imagine was really valuable now, like that you have that background at
Yeah.
Shopify as well.
Something that I always stress about qualitative research is that you have your quantitative research, you have your academic research, and
Yeah.
it's very structured, it's very specific, it's hard to blur the lines.
Yeah.
Survey is an example. Like you kind of have to stick
Yeah.
to a formula to
Exactly.
use reliable data. And where some people scrutinize qualitative research actually is that it's a little bit more messy, it's a little bit more subjective.
Yeah.
And I really like to flip that on its head and not make it a negative aspect, but say that it's a
Yeah.
really positive quality. Like if we can accept
Absolutely.
that qualitative research, if we can accept that it's going to be messy and subjective, then it means that we can be a little bit more playful. It means that, you know,
Exactly.
get
It's
get your
for me, it's
statement
like the
out.
human side of research. Like you say, the
Exactly.
quantitative, the survey is a bit more, yeah, it's just hard data, and like you say, the lines are not really blurry. But I prefer the qualitative side. Like it's more in touch with the human, with the people. The I don't know, yeah, it's just more human for me, and it's something that I do prefer.
Absolutely. And there will always be a caveat of, I was the one gathering the data, I'm the one interpreting the data, and I'm not a
Yeah.
calculator. Therefore, and that's where having like reflexivity,
Yeah.
self-awareness, like, you know, reflexive statements just about like, here's who I
Yeah.
am, here's a bias that I might be bringing to the research are very
Mm,
powerful because you still add that caveat of,
yeah.
this isn't a pure science. And I think ideally it affords you a little bit more flexibility to
Yeah.
go where you will with the research.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, thanks for going into that as well. Um, like kind of moving forward a bit, because obviously now you've got a lot more experience and obviously you moved over to Miro. Like looking back, knowing all the things that you know now and all the training you did at Shopify and all those things you experienced, is there anything that you would do differently, maybe earlier on when you did transition over as that intern? Let's call it an internship
Hmm.
at Shopify. Is there something that you'd look back and say, "Oh, I'd do that differently," or I'd focus on that, I don't know, that particular side of UX research or anything like that?
Yeah. I actually, thinking back to our previous little bit on being introverted and, being a little
Mm.
bit more comfortable on the solo side of things, I think that if I could, earlier on, I wish I had learned the importance of getting out of that solo work. And
Okay.
it's a very easy place for a researcher to land because you're collecting data and then you're sitting with the data, ideally for long periods of time to really make sense of it.
Yeah,
And then you're
you'd write.
writing or creating, yeah, I know, one can dream. You're creating your share out or your artifact. All of this can be done alone.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is that research really, like, I think that the function of research should really more so be evaluated on the quality of other people's knowledge. Like, to
Yeah.
what degree have you enmeshed the organizational knowledge that everybody is empowered and has the tools to
Yeah.
innovate, develop, progress with a shared
Mm.
understanding and a shared knowledge?
Yeah.
Whereas when I was first starting out, I think I kind of had that misconception, as many people do, that I would be evaluated on the quality of my own knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm building the domain expertise. I'm here as a
Yeah.
researcher to deliver reports. I'll socialize those reports, surely, but it felt much more like, yeah, I was collecting the evidence and writing it and bringing it forward, and I was more of a lone wolf with
Mm.
it. Whereas
Yeah.
now I realize that, if anything, like, relationships and your capacity to bring in knowledge from others in the organization, like,
Absolutely.
yeah, like, explicate the tacit knowledge that's around, or tacit,
Yeah.
I never know how to say that
Yeah.
word, that's in the organization to
Yeah.
to bring it all together.
Yeah.
And it's like super uncomfortable for me to this day, but I think that it's probably the most important role of a researcher.
No, no, I completely agree. And like you say, like being an introvert, it might be something you feel more comfortable doing, spending that time alone in your own thoughts and your own analysis or whatever you're going through. But I found like I actually discover and notice the most from my research when I do open it up and I don't know, have a session with the UX designers or product managers, or even if the research report is not actually ready yet, but just to kind of sit through with it and kind of do like a mini review with them and just show them what I'm doing. And when they look through it,
Hmm.
they give like maybe a different like a viewpoint or perspective based on obviously their experience in their role, etc. Then I'll come out to the call and think, oh yeah, I didn't actually notice that, or that's actually a nice way to look at it. And then I'll start going like, scurrying to this rabbit hole on that particular thing that they brought up. And at the end of the day, the reports that you do from that will actually be beneficial for them as well, because it's something that they had an input in and they give their viewpoint. So it's a nice point and something that like I value as well.
Exactly. And most of these senior stakeholders, like, these are experts in their field. They would not be directors or, executives at your company
Yeah.
had they not built an expertise in this area. And I see time and time again, like, researchers will get trapped in this idea of, I built the domain knowledge, I've done the study, here are the facts. Oof, like, this person's not listening, or they don't see it
Yeah.
this way, and it's much more productive, I think, to include that person's perspective as if they were just another channel of data. And,
Yeah.
how can you triangulate that now? And then when your senior stakeholders see their own views reflected back to them, they feel heard, they trust you more, you
Exactly.
have their buy-in. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
And they'll
So,
feel
but it
like you
means
say.
getting out of your little phone booth of, of listening to interviews and typing up
Exactly.
your report.
It's true. No, no, it's true. And I think that that's always the relationships you do need to build. And it's something I've mentioned in other episodes as well. It's something that I didn't fully appreciate before becoming a UX researcher, the stakeholder relationship side of things. I just focus like purely on the actual the hard skills of being a UX researcher. But like I would say 70% of your job is that like relationship building, that rapport building with getting that buy-in from other like team members. And a lot of the time you're having to build those bridges between like various stakeholders who maybe don't fully understand what UX research is, or don't fully understand what you're actually doing, what you're there for. And I think that's one way to like help build those bridges and that kind of, I don't know, knowledge gap potentially, by having them, involved more in the research and getting them to review it with you, or just sharing what you're doing. And then when it does come to those big presentations, they've already looked through it with you and they kind of know what you're doing. And yeah, they're a bit more open to having that buy-in as well. So it's a good point. I do know you have a hard stop
Mhm.
now, I think
Oh
this
yeah,
time.
120 seconds. What's your?
No problem. And maybe we can do it a part two, because there was something I did want to go into in terms of like juniors in the who are in like the interview process, etc. Because I imagine being the head of UX research, you are on the other side and you do conduct interviews and the hiring process, etc. So
Mhm.
maybe on another recording, if you're up for it, we could go into that. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure.